I will go to the CAO.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek direction from the Regional District Board regarding enforcement against property owner of 213 Prospect Drive in relation to placement of structure without a building permit. And the administrative recommendation is that Section 302 notice on title pursuant to Section 302 of the Local Government Act and Section 57 of the Community Charter made applicable to the Regional District by Section 302 of the Local Government Act be filed against the title of lands described as Lot 13, District Lot 2709, that certain works have been undertaken on the lands contrary to the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen Bylaw 2805, 2018. Staff's here to answer any questions or concerns you may have.
Okay. Generally, we ask if the applicant or owner of this property is online or in the room and want to address the board. If you're online, raise your hand or let us know in some fashion. I'm not seeing anyone in the room here. Check with Adam. Any hands that you're seeing that I'm not? Okay, I will go to Director Coyne Senior. Direction on this one.
I'd like to make the administrative recommendation, please.
Moving it, it's seconded, it's on the floor. Any discussion on it? Director Taylor?
Yeah, question to staff.
Go ahead.
Curious what, perhaps I misunderstood, but what was the original building permit for? I couldn't see that. Is the whole house built without inspection, or was it just a deck or a kitchen reno?
We'll go to Mark. Go ahead, Mr. Petrie.
Significant renovation and addition, and there's some outstanding documentation that is why we're here today, and they didn't provide that after numerous attempts. So.
Okay. Follow up to that, or are you?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
So I guess I'm wondering, how do we as a board know whether there's any plumbing, electrical type issues that could cause a safety issue?
Mr.
We could
Petrie?
provide more details in the reports, but typically we would give you the current status of that. And then for a more in-depth review, we would answer those questions. So, which I can do now. So currently the house is generally complete and we're waiting for final sign off on the septic. The electrical affidavit from the electrician. Often these can be financial reasons why they're not being submitted. So in order to get that, payment of the final bill. So we saw this as, it seemed generally complete. The inspector felt that a notice on title was sufficient at that point based on his judgment and his involvement with the project. And notifying potential owners in this situation would be is what we recommend at this point, and not go into further junctures.
It's the main concern. All right. Any further discussion on this? Seeing no hands, call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to section D, D1, Agricultural Land Commission referral in Area C, CAO. Thank
you, Chair. An application has been submitted to the Agricultural Land Commission under section 21.2 of the ALC and referred to the regional district in order to permit a subdivision to occur within the ALR. The staff recommendation is that the RDOS Board authorize the application to subdivide the parcel located at 8856 Highway 97 to proceed to the ALR. Staff's here to answer questions.
Okay, and I'll go to Director Chahal. Direction on this one. We're not hearing you. You're muted. Director Chahal, I still see your mute button is on, or your.
Stop recommendation.
You would like to send this to your APC? Is that okay? I've seen the chat thing, and there's a seconder for that. So he's asking for it to be sent to the APC. Any discussion? Not seeing any, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to D2, which is a request to waive the development cost charges, CAO.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide options in relation to the request that has been submitted by the South Skaha Housing Society seeking a development cost charge and comprehensive capital expenditure charge in the amount of $307,368, with the staff recommendation being that the following charges related to the proposed development of an affordable housing project comprising 36 units at 5080 9th Avenue, Okanagan Falls, be waived in accordance with Section 236.1 of the Local Government Act and Regional District Okanagan Similkameen Development Cost Charge Waiver Bylaw 2803.2018, a development cost charge DCCs in the amount of $151,200 for sanitary sewer service and a comprehensive capital expenditure charge in the amount of $156,168 for water service. Staff is here to answer questions, and down here at the bottom, it says there's no PowerPoint.
All right, I'll go to Director Taylor. Direction on this for your area?
Okay, these units are all subsidized, either rent geared to income, deep subsidy, or in BC Housing's terms, market, but that's actually about 2/3 of market. I am going to move the staff recommendation.
Okay,
It is
so
a
you're
lot of money.
moving it, seconded, thank you. Any discussion on this? Director Federico, go ahead.
Thank you through the chair. Will they be seeking grant funding or any other types of assistance on paying for this? Because then otherwise, is that cost then downloaded to the rest of the users on that system?
I'll go to-
Absolutely. They have, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, if you can answer it, go ahead.
Well, let's defer to staff and then I'll
See,
take a run at it if necessary.
sure, staff can answer that, CAO or
Chris?
Mr. Garish? That will probably be more of a finance issue, but go ahead.
They have applied for grants. The building is being built by grant. The grant apparently did not include this component. And this, basically, you're right, this is going to be paid for by the residents of Okanagan Falls area. No, just the residents of Okanagan Falls. And it equates to approximately 10 points on, if it were all in 1 year, it'd be 10 points on our property taxes. So it's a substantial, humongous contribution by the local community.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Oh, a question. Go ahead, Director Monteith.
Thank you. Through the chair, I guess looking for precedent, has this been done before? What do municipalities do? Do they waive the DCCs?
I know we've did it for the first phase of this in OK Falls, but I'll check with staff for anything further. CAO?
It's not uncommon for municipalities to waive DCCs for special projects like this.
Okay. Call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. D3, scheduling of public hearings. CAO, rescheduling, I guess this is, but
Thank you, Chair. To provide options to the Regional District Board in relation to the scheduling of public hearings in relation to a number of land use bylaw amendments, with the staff recommendation being that the holding of a public hearing in relation to the following bylaws be scheduled for the Regional District meeting of July 17th, 2025. Electoral Area E Community Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 3010.03, 2025. Okanagan Valley Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2800.52, 2025, and 2800.54, 2025. Electoral Area H Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2497.17, 2025, and Electoral Area H Zoning Bylaw 3065.01, 2025, and that staff give notice to the public hearing in accordance with the requirement of the Local Government Act. Staff's here to answer your questions with no PowerPoint presentation.
okay, so looking for direction on this. Someone prepared to move it? Okay, moved, seconded, thank you. Any discussion? Don't see any hands. This one is a rural vote. Okay, double checking that. Getting the nod. Call the question, rural vote, all in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. D4, official community plan and zoning bylaw amendment, Heritage Hills, Lakeshore Highlands, Vintage Views, CAO.
Thank you. The amendment to the land use bylaw are in accordance to reduce permitted densities within the community of Heritage Hills, Lakeshore Highlands, and Vintage Views by prohibiting secondary suites and accessory dwellings and further requiring a new dwellings within the Vintage Village sewer service area be connected to the sewer system, with the staff recommendation being that first, second reading for electoral D, official community plan amendment bylaw 2603.27, 2025, and the Okanagan Valley zoning amendment bylaw 2800.43, 2025 be rescinded and the bylaws abandoned.
And I'll go to Director Taylor. Direction.
Move the staff recommendation.
Okay, moved, seconded, thank you. Any discussion on this? I'm not seeing any hands, and this one is again a rural vote. Call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. D5, regulating the creation of new private utilities, CAO.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to use bylaw amendments is to introduce regulations in relations to private water and sewer utilities, with the staff recommendation being that the official community plan amendment bylaw 3025.202 and development procedure amendment bylaw 2500.34 be read a third time, and that the zoning amendment bylaw 3046, 2025 and subdivision servicing bylaw 2900.01, 2025 be read a third time as amended. And no presentation on this one, but staff's here to answer questions.
Okay, direction on this one. Someone prepared to move it? Moved, seconded, thank you. Any discussion? Director Bloomfield, go ahead.
I'm just in relation to the amendment. Can we clarify, does the amendment mean that strata systems are exempt from the requirement to be run by the regional district?
Go to staff.
Well, so just to clarify, the regulation doesn't mandate that the regional district would have to take on particular systems, but the exemption provides that private utilities can be created in those electoral areas that are in the proposed exemption without having to have a variance permit issued by the board.
Okay,
Doesn't that kind of defeat the idea of the regulation or the requirement?
staff?
Well, yes, but it was a drafting exercise in terms of accommodating the request from directors to be removed from the regulation. So providing this exemption was deemed to be the best way to do that.
Director Federico.
Thank you through the chair. So then we're still in our OCPs putting in the language that we're discouraging private utility systems, but it's allowed under the zoning bylaw.
Chris, go ahead.
Correct, through the chair. So the zoning bylaw and the subdivision servicing bylaw would provide those exemptions.
All right. Anything further? Director Gettins.
Sorry, can you just say that one more time? I just missed it.
Go ahead, Chris.
This is where I wish I had a copy of the bylaw in front of us. I could just read it. But so the request was for 4 electoral areas to not be subject to the regulation of private utilities. We've drafted the exemption to allow for that. And just recalling the way the amendment is before you today, it's reading those 2 bylaws, so zoning and subdivision servicing, as amended to allow for that to apply in those 4 electoral areas that requested it previously. So I hope that helps. But
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, this one, did you have a hand up, Director Roberts?
I was just gonna add my usual, so I'll just leave it.
Okay, you're comfortable with that rural vote? All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. down to Public Works, E1, Skaha Estates Improvement District Conversion, CAO.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is for the regional district to provide operational services to the Skaha Estate Improvement District and to ask the province to have the agreement verified or adopted, with the staff recommendation being that the regional district approve the acquisition of the services provided by the Skaha Estates Improvement District and request that the British Columbia Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs to proceed with the process of converting Skaha Estate Improvement District into the regional district services on January 1st, 2026, and that the regional district provide operational services to the Skaha Estate Improvement District as a contractor beginning in September 2025 until December 31st, 2025, with the preparation of a suitable operational agreement. Staff is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, over to Director Taylor, direction.
I'll move both these motions.
Okay, moving them. Seconded, it's on the floor. Any discussion or questions? Don't see any hands on this one. Corporate vote, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. E2, Strategic Priority Fund Applications, CAO.
Never very happy to talk about this kind of report because it pits one electoral area against another, similar to where municipalities apply for grants, it pits one municipality against another. But as far as regional district goes, it's closer just because your neighbors are affected. So the purpose of the Strategic Priorities Fund is one of the three funding streams delivered through the Canada Community Building Fund in British Columbia. It is an application-based funding program which pools a portion of the annual funds for strategic investments that are considered large in scale, regional impact, and innovative, and supports national objectives for the economic growth of the area. The grants are up to $7 million. The administrative recommendation is that the board approve 3 major infrastructure projects and 1 capacity building project for application to the Strategic Priorities Fund for 2025 as follows. The Village Views wastewater system upgrade, Lakeshore Waterworks and Skaha Estate water system upgrades, Stage Mesa water system reservoir and treatment plant upgrades, capacity building, GIS and mapping updates for the RDOS infrastructure. The last page on your report, there is a spreadsheet that talks about the cost benefit analysis for each of the projects. They are in no particular order, but I thought that I had staff add that to make it easier for you to make a recommendation. Staff is here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, board direction on this. Go ahead, Director Gettens.
I'll move the administrative recommendation, please.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Missing any hands? Did I call the question then? Corporate vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. E3, Vintage Views Wastewater and Lakeshore Waterworks Acquisition, CAO.
Thank you. This is to provide the final board approval for the acquisition of Vintage Views Wastewater and Lakeshore Waterworks for the transfer of ownership of the 2 water utilities and to receive board approval for the required FTEs and resources for the 3 acquired utilities, with the staff recommendation being that the regional district proceed with the acquisition of Lakeshore Waterworks and Vintage Views sewer system with transfer of ownership set for December 29th, 2025, and that the regional district approve the FTE's staff request and necessary resources as presented by the Senior Manager of Public Works in the July 3rd, 2025 board report requiring for the acquisition of Lakeshore Waterworks, Vintage Views, Wastewater, and Skaha Estates Improvement District utilities. Staff is here to answer any questions you may have.
Over to Director Taylor, direction on this one.
I'd like to move this, but I do want to ask some questions.
Okay, go ahead with the questions.
I'd just like, and I've had some discussion with staff, but I'd like some clarity on 3 areas: vehicle requirements. What's the experience within the RDOS? Do we typically require a vehicle per staff person. Cross utilization, whether system operators, water and sewer can be combined, and whether the role of an eng tech and project manager can be combined. I'm looking for cost savings, and what have staff got to say on those three aspects?
Okay, I'll go over to staff. Ms. Bloomfield.
All right, thank you, Chair. I will try and remember all of those questions as I get through them. Essentially, when we looked at these three systems coming on, we evaluated what the needs would be for operating it based on other systems. And the amount I'm bringing forward is essentially what we think it will be for doing the operations, doing the capital works, because there's a significant amount of capital works. The eng tech position is going to be, we need another person just to work on these projects for these three systems. So that's the eng tech role. The project coordinator role is different. This one is more focused on the educational things of the new systems. We want to make sure that we roll it out properly to the people. We do all of the updated education. This person will be doing a lot of the leak detection. They'll be doing the, what have I got here? A lot of the information gathering, conservation. They'll be working with the operators quite a bit. And the way my FTE evaluation came out, it actually showed that I needed 2 water operators, but not 2 full operators. I needed 1.5 water operators, and I couldn't really hire a half-time water operator. So what I did is between the eng tech, environmental tech, and the project coordinator, those extra duties are spread out among them. So the amount that I put forward is what we think we'll actually need until we start operating it. It's possible that it may actually end up costing a lot more and a lot more manpower, but we're optimistic that we've got a pretty good handle on what needs to be done there. So this is our estimates, just to basically meet the minimum needs. As for the vehicles, every one of our water and sewer operators has a vehicle. They have to respond to all the different sites. We have a very diverse and spread out water systems. And every day they go out to the different systems. They don't go together, they go independently. We don't have enough operators for them to go together to the different sites unless they're actually going and doing a construction or a bigger maintenance project. So they do need vehicles. Every operator has a vehicle, our maintenance worker has a vehicle, and the environmental tech, because the environmental tech will go out and do sampling. They go out on their own to the different sites and do the various sampling. So yes, the 4 vehicles are required for those 4 roles.
Okay. Any follow-up to that, Director Taylor? Okay. You're moving it as seconded. Thank you. Any further discussion or questions on this? Not seeing any hands. Again, this is corporate. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. Down to community services, Seacrest Hill Campground, secondary license of occupation, CAO.
Thank you. The province has offered the RDOS a backdated letter of occupation having a term of 12 months expiring May 1st, 2036. Obtaining a secondary license of occupation from the province is required in order for the RDOS to continue operation and maintenance of the campground facility in its current format, with the staff recommendation being that the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen approve the acquisition of a license of occupation for the province of British Columbia over Crown land legally described as Lot A, District Lot 2450. all of the Smilkameen Division District containing 2.32 hectares more or less for a term of 12 years for agriculture.
Can you snitch the one next to you? Can you snitch the one next to you?
So now I forgot my question. Let's see. Oh, so is there still, it says agricultural workers, but are there still other people camping there just because it's a cheap place to camp?
I will go to staff on that. I'm not sure.
Thank you for the question, Chair. So the camp, as the board knows, is primarily set up as an agricultural worker campground. We do understand that from time to time, there may be some folks that are not necessarily related to the agricultural sector, but we very much emphasize the requirement to be agricultural workers, and that is the whole purpose of the camp, and I believe is a requirement from the Agricultural Land Commission. So the focus here is to have folks within the campground be agricultural workers.
Okay. Director Johansson, you had a question?
Mine's not working either. There we go.
There you go.
That was basically my question as well. I mean, just going back to conversations with the Director Canoodle, there was a lot of people that were moving RVs and different things in there as soon as the camp opened up, and then they would relocate as well. He had a lot of concerns that we kept that open because where would those people go if they didn't go there? And seeing the demographic quite change with a lot of people from Quebec not coming into the area, you hardly see a Quebec license plate anymore. I would really honestly challenge you that there is mostly agricultural workers in there, and just do we have any details or information on that to sort of prove that, rebut those comments that I'm making? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We can certainly check the records. Every attendee person staying within the campground is recorded, so we can go back and take a look and report back to the board. But the focus, as I mentioned, is to be an agricultural campground.
Okay. Director Federico.
Thank you to the chair. Not too long ago, new services were put in there, my understanding, maybe bathroom and laundry. Will those facilities accommodate the increase in people that are there? Were they designed specifically for the initial number? And then if they're not, what then needs to be done to increase capacity?
Over to staff.
Thank you. The facilities are designed for full capacity. I was up at the campground on Monday. There's some availability within the campground right now, but that of course does fluctuate throughout the season and even from year to year. So there is capacity, and the infrastructure is designed for full capacity.
Okay. Go ahead, Director Bush.
Is there anybody managing the campsite that's employed by RDOS?
Over to staff.
Yes, thank you, Chair. There is an operator. We have a contract with the operator who's responsible for managing general upkeep of the campground.
Okay. Any further discussion? Director Holmes?
I would just say if there's less demand for agricultural campground, and this is there's a serious shortage of camping sites in this province. You try to book one for this weekend anywhere in the province, you won't be able to find one. It's impossible. So, and we have a municipal campground in Summerlin. It's very profitable. So, we might want to look in the long term of turning this into a public campground if it's attractive. It's revenue generation.
I'm not sure that's viable under our existing conditions, but it is something to consider. Any further discussion, or do you have a comment? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The CEO just reminded me to mention, in terms of grants that we do apply for, there is a requirement that it be related to agriculture, and the property itself is also within the Agricultural Land Reserve, and that was a key condition of their approval to ensure that this be a focused agricultural worker campground.
All right, Director Coyne.
Yeah, I want to support Director Holmes on his thought, because you can always ask for a change of scope from the ALC if there are no more agricultural workers there. It'd be a shame to take all the money that we put into it and just get rid of it because there's no more agricultural workers there. We've got one up in the Similkameen that's on ALR land, and there's multiples, but yeah, I mean ultimately I'd like to see the farm workers come back, but
Okay. Well, it's being used for that at the moment. So any further discussion? Call the question. Corporate, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to finance, bylaw amendment for the 5-year financial plan, CAO.
Thank you, Chair. This report is to allow for the replacement of Vehicle 41 from the Mosquito Control Services with a cost of no more than $64,000 to be funded for a maximum of $37,000 from the Vehicle Replacement Reserve and a maximum of $27,000 from the Mosquito Control Operating Reserve, with the staff recommendation being that bylaw 3102.02 2025 being a bylaw to amend the 2025-2029 financial 5-year plan to include the replacement of the mosquito control vehicle using a combination of funds from the Vehicle Replacement Reserve and the Mosquito Control Operating Reserve be read a first, second, and third time and adopted. Staff's here to answer your questions.
Okay, direction on this one. Someone prepared to move it? Seconded, thank you. Any discussion or questions? Again, did I see a hand, Director Roberts? You're okay? Call the question, all in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. Legislative Services, Security Issuing Bylaw for the City of Penticton, CAO.
Thank you. To undertake municipal financing on behalf of the City of Penticton in accordance with Section 410 of the Local Government Act and throughout the Municipal Finance Authority. I'm getting an email here for the estimated cost of designing, expanding, and constructing, upgrading to the Ellis 4 Dam, with the administrative recommendation being that the Security Issuing Bylaw 3111-2025 being a bylaw of the Regional District of Okanagan and Similkameen to authorize the borrowing of up to $11 million for the estimated cost of designing, expanding, and constructing upgrade to the Ellis Number 4 Dam be read a first, second, and third time and be adopted.
Okay, and I'm assuming Director Bloomfield would like to move this one, but I'll ask. Moved. Seconder, thank you. Any discussion on this? Not seeing any hands. Again, corporate vote, all in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. H2, Similkameen Visitor Information Center Contribution Service. Go ahead, Director Federico.
I'm going to recuse myself from this one because I've done work for them.
Okay. Thanks for letting us know on that. And I'll go to the CAO. Well, you step out.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to amend the Service Establishment Bylaw to remove references to the Similkameen Country Development Association, add provision for annual audits, and remove the apportionment percentage provision, with the staff recommendation being that the Similkameen Visitors Information Center Contribution Service Establishment Amendment Bylaw 2622.01/2025 be read a first, second, and third time.
Direction on this. Director Roberts.
I'd like to move it. I think it's important, especially that we have clear bylaws that don't tie ourselves to specifics.
Good plan. Moved, seconded. Thank you. Any further discussion on this? Not seeing any hands. Again, this one is a corporate vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. And if you could let Director Federico know, she's welcome back in. We'll go to UBCM 2025 Community Excellence Award. CAO.
Thank you. Staff have submitted an application for the UBCM 2025 Community Excellence Award, showcasing the RDOS Strategic Progress Tracker as an effective and adaptable tool for aligning resources with strategies and priorities. Staff believe that the offers is a practical model and will help other local governments with benefit, with the staff recommendation being that the board endorse the submission of the RDOS Strategic Priorities Progress Tracker Initiative for the UBCM 2025 Community Excellence Award in the category of Excellence in Governance. I may be biased, but I'd like to repeat that. Excellence in governments for the RDOS.
All right, looking for direction from the board on this. Someone prepared to move it? Moved, saying thank you, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no hands, again, corporate vote, all in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. Okanagan Regional Library Letter of Support, CAO.
Yes, as you stated, the support of Okanagan Regional Library request for the establishment of an increase to grant opportunities with staff recommendation. With the staff recommendation being that the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen provide a letter of support for Okanagan-Similkameen Regional Library Ministerial Meeting. Staff is here to answer questions or concerns you may have.
Direction on this one?
Okay.
Moving? Is there a seconder? Thank you. Any discussion? Not seeing hands again. Corporate, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. That brings us down to CAO reports. CAO.
Just one thing, you all received an email from me regarding the CAO deputy phone that is now in progress, is working. At any given point, if you use the new number, you will always receive, I will always answer probably 95% of the time when I'm out of service or not available, it automatically goes to whoever the deputy CAO is. So that commenced as of yesterday.
Okay. I see a question. Director Monteith, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, is it possible to get a number made public for residents to call if they need like emergency support after hours? So specifically like Twin Lakes, the families that were concerned about the rock slide on the weekend, they had nobody to call.
Go to the CAO. Go ahead,
Hello.
Eric.
To the chair. The Emergency Operations Center phone number 4225 is set up so that people can, and if it's not set up today, it's in the process of being set up so that when it calls right now, and I think it actually is now that I think of it, when someone calls it, it goes automatically to the duty officer. So the public wouldn't have that duty officer phone number because it is private, but an actual person would answer the phone, and that provides an opportunity to triage whatever the situation is. So the answer is yes, there is an opportunity for the public. And also, I just wanted to say quickly that if they did get a voicemail message, one of them is reminding people to call 911 if it's an imminent emergency.
Okay, follow up, Director Monteith.
Thank you. Can we just do a little Facebook post about it so I can share it around? Because there was a concern, and I mean, I did the best I could, and I shared the ESS number because that was the only one I could find.
Okay.
I'll certainly talk to Protective Services and we'll arrange that right away.
Okay, Director Taylor.
A similar line of thinking. How does the if the public has a question, and they had one just weekend before last about wildlife inside of an RDOS area, for them to find who to phone after hours, challenging. And if staff could review that at the same time, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, I'm not sure there is a designated line for that, but CAO?
We have a lot of little cards that has all the emergency numbers. I even carry one 24/7 because I don't remember all the numbers. I think we just need a better job to distribute them. Not everybody knows where to pick this up. This drop-off offices that we were talking about, they will have, this will be available to them so that they can have all the numbers available. Chris or Eric, do you have anything else you can add to that?
Go ahead.
The website is being, the process has started to update the website. That will help a lot. And the phone system right now, there is a phone tree that's been expanded to offer different options. I mean, there are quite a few different options because it's such a wide area. But with something like that, if I'm not mistaken, would be the conservation office. So to try and to translate that to people might be challenging, but certainly we can do a better job on the website for sure.
Okay, it just comes to my mind is that little card that CAO had, would that be possible to have something like a digital of it that we could email to people when they get a request? That would be real simple, and it would solve more than just the one that they're after right now. It would give them all to them, so.
To the chair, we have an updated version of that, so we'll make that available right away. And it does have the conservation office number on there. And what we're really working toward is department phone numbers versus individuals or individual employees.
All right, a follow-up, Director Monteith and then Roberts.
Thank you. I would love to have that as my email signature as part of that, because I feel like every email I'm sending, it would have that information there. So if that's
Yeah.
possible.
I don't know how that works, but maybe it can be done, so. Director Roberts?
I'm not going to take the credit, but I think Director Fedrigo just said something. We love our fridge magnets. If you have that as a fridge magnet with your updated one-stop shop numbers, that's where I've got my, my wife has put "do not resuscitate my husband." It's right there, and that's right next to it.
Okay, so make them into fridge magnets and it might work. Yeah, that's true. Director Bush?
Yeah, so if Fortis ends up shutting us down during a heat wave or whatever, what protection do we have for mobile phone use for constituents?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah,
Eric?
to the chair, I can't say I'm the person to answer that question, but I was just, while we were here, monitoring a provincial call regarding broadcast intrusive alerts, BC emergency alerts. And if there's something that's really serious going on, there is an opportunity to reach people through other means than cell phones, because the cell phone has to be on and operable. And broadcast intrusive would be radio, television, those kinds of things for something serious that's imminent. As far as that part of it, you'd have to speak with protective services. I think there's a lot of concern behind the scenes, but what can be done at the local level, I can't speak to that.
Something we'll have to keep in mind though. CAO?
Well, I originally, when they were here, I did talk to them about how does Emergency Operations Center know what's going on, and they did state that they would give us advance notice at that point. A warning alert would go out to warn everyone that power was imminently going to be shut off.
Okay. Not seeing any other hands. Continue on. CAO, did you have any?
Nothing further.
Nothing further from you? Okay, thank you, Eric, for the update on there. Nothing for strategic priorities. Chair's report. The only thing I was going to report is, I think it's called Copilot, the AI program. I'm testing it right now with my emails, as is some staff. I have to admit, I think I need some training on it because I'm not 100% certain how to use it, but I will be making a recommendation at the end of this, whether it's something that the board wants to try. Like I say, I think I need training to figure it all out, but it is interesting, and I'm going to have to ask for help on that. Director Fedrigo?
Yes, thank you, the chair. So I used it the other day to help me write messaging. Are we, one, I guess, supposed to be using that? Two, do we have an AI policy that we should be following? Like, what is our process with this?
Okay, CAO?
So an AI policy is going to be brought to the board. The version that you're using would be, in lack of better words, the free version. So it's very limited. The version that the chair is talking about is the licensed version. It's very robust, and I'm finding it very useful. One project alone, it saved me 4 hours, where it was a 2-day job, was less than, well, 4 hours less. So once the chair makes the decision, if he thinks it's going to go through, he will recommend if you're going to.
Yeah, well, maybe we could get a board presentation at some point on it and keep it in mind, so.
If Mike is still on, Mike, please set up a board presentation.
Yeah, after we've tested it a bit. All right, director's motions. Any director's motions? Wow, nothing there. Board members' verbal updates. Anything from your communities that you want to report on? Director Coyne, Senior, go ahead.
Yeah, over the weekend, I was out to Chain Lake to deal with some, we had a small meeting there with the landowners where the Chain Lake Dam is situated. From that meeting, I've talked to CAO, and the landowners will be having another meeting with our staff and hopefully some of the other stakeholders that are involved, i.e. the province. But yeah, it just through, this was supposed to come to the board here a few weeks ago to upgrade the loan loan limits. And it didn't come because we pulled it off due to there are some very serious issues that have to be dealt with first so that we can get it to the board. And I know people are wondering why it was pulled off and why, it hasn't come back yet. So we have to deal with those. There's some pretty serious issues with that dam yet. So, but it's just another case of when we have these types of projects, it's becoming more and more incumbent on us as directors to make sure and question absolutely every single thing every step of these projects as they go along. So we don't get to the 11th hour like this and find out that there was issues that were missed or taken for granted that things were going to happen and they didn't. And I mean, I'm going to wear this one that I wasn't aware of some of these things that just thought they were going to happen and they didn't. So yeah. Anyways, they'll be having a meeting here in the next week or so and try and get these things ironed out so that hopefully we can get on with this dam project. It's been ongoing now for 4 or 5 years, and it's very imperative that we get this worked out to a fair and equitable settlement at the end of the day, because there's only 63 people or 62 people that are paying for a $1.75 million dam, and that's a heck of a lot of money for those people to have to come up with. So anyways, I just wanted to give everybody an update of why it hasn't come back to the board yet. So thank you.
Okay. Director McCordoff.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to report that on July the 1st, we celebrated the 75th annual Cherry Fiesta. In 1949, the first one happened, and it was called Cherry Carnival. But in about the mid-70s, we had the Spanish Development Society. So it took over running some things in town. It was changed to Cherry Fiesta. We had an amazing parade through town, and tons of people that were there, both tourists and residents that were there on the sides of the road. And we had a really good day. I was very happy to welcome MLA Wilson and Clarence Louie to the opening ceremonies. We had pie eating contests, and we did not have the cherry pit spit, much to the horror of some of the residents who enjoy that. I don't, but never mind, that wasn't up to me. They may put it back next year. Anyway, it was a great day, and of course it culminated in fireworks. And I certainly saw pictures of various other communities who celebrated Canada Day as well. So happy Canada Day.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have any verbal updates from their community? Not seeing any other hands. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded. All in favor? Great. Any opposed? That motion carries. And I think we're a little bit behind schedule, but not too far. And we go to the Planning and Development Committee, and I think it's going to be Director Federico who chairs this one. So over to you.
Thank you. So I'd like to call the Planning and Development Committee meeting to order at 11:09, and if we can approve the agenda. First, second, all in favor? Perfect. No one's opposed. That motion carries. So we're looking at item B, short-term rental accommodation review, and I will refer that to the CAO.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to summarize the outcome of the public consultation undertaken in support of the draft policies and regulations to be applied to short-term rental accommodations. The staff recommendation is that the following bylaws be brought forward for consideration for first reading at a forthcoming regional district board meeting. Official community plan amendment bylaw 3099, Okanagan Valley zoning bylaw 2800.50, business license regulation amendment bylaw 3100.01, and fees and charges amendment bylaw 3097.01. Staff is here with a presentation and to answer your questions.
I will go to staff.
Okay, so this item is just reporting back on public consultation that was undertaken in support of land use bylaw amendments for the short-term rental review. And just to recap the most recent board consideration, the last time that this was at committee was on May 8th, and that was consideration of some revised draft bylaws that were prepared in response to a change of project scope and an informal workshop that was held with the area directors to confirm this project scope. At the end of May, referrals of these bylaws were sent to external agencies, and then on June 11th, a public information meeting was held, completing the public consultation for these bylaws. And so just in recognition that there may always be desire to augment the bylaws in response to public feedback, I've just included a brief high-level summary of the content and scope of these bylaws. I've tried to organize it a bit thematically rather than going through each of the bylaws individually. So it's just the next couple slides just detail a high-level summary of where we're at with this current regulatory approach. So of course, the main change is replacing the use classes that are used in the zoning bylaw and official community plans. And this is in response to provincial legislation, which is now standardizing the terminology to refer to these uses, calling them short-term rentals. And so the main change is replacing two use classes in our bylaws that align with this, as that's bed and breakfast operation and vacation rental. And it's just proposed to reduce both of these with a single new use class called short-term rental accommodation. That's to align with the new provincial direction. Following from that, it's proposed to permit this new short-term rental accommodation use wherever bed and breakfasts are currently permitted in the land use bylaws. So it's not any new change, it's just replacing the terminology. And in recognition that in areas A, C, and E, there is a desire expressed to retain the historic distinction between bed and breakfast and vacation rental, being whether there's an operator on site in the same dwelling as guests during operation. That requirement is proposed to be retained in those areas. It's just appearing as a standalone regulation now, rather than relying on two different definitions to accomplish the same purpose. And to reflect this approach in areas A, C, and E, it's proposed to introduce a new short-term rental permit. And this would be to allow short-term rentals where there is an operator off-site during operations, historically what we've referred to as a vacation rental. Some changes to the intensity of the short-term rental use are also being proposed. So in areas E and F, the intensity of use is proposed to be limited to one short-term rental per parcel. In areas A, C, D, and I, this would be two per parcel. Further, for those areas that allow a second short-term rental on the property, that second short-term rental could be used exclusively as a short-term rental, in other words, up to 12 months of the year. And this is in alignment with the maximum regulatory allowance under the provincial requirements. In the medium density residential and town and village center designations, in recognition that these zones allow for multifamily dwellings where there would be individual owners of different units. There's not proposed to be a maximum, and this is in recognition that each of the owners of the different dwelling units may wish to operate a short-term rental. And of course, that would result in more than one per property. Across the board, it's proposed to retain a maximum aggregate occupancy of 2 persons per bedroom. This is what is currently allowed for both with the vacation rental OCP policies and bed and breakfast zoning regulations. Of course, one of the major provincial changes was the introduction of a principal residence requirement, and in recognition that 3 of our electoral areas opted into this requirement back in 2024, official community plan policies are proposed to be introduced reflecting this direction. As well, for electoral area E, it did not formally opt into the provincial principal residence requirement, but did request that similar language be included at a policy level in its official community plan. So that is proposed to be introduced. The next category of changes relates to differentiating more clearly between short-term rental uses and tourist accommodation uses. And really, one of the key differences is whether the use is occurring in a dwelling. So of course, short-term rental accommodation is a use that's occurring in a dwelling unit, and a dwelling that's being used for residential purposes for the remainder of the year. Generally speaking, a short-term accommodation use that's being provided in a structure that's not a dwelling, such as a recreational vehicle, an accessory building that doesn't have bedrooms, cooking facilities, etc. These aren't considered short-term rental, and the use class that is categorized under our land use bylaws is tourist accommodation. And so to clearly differentiate the board's preferred approach, new policies are proposed to be introduced discouraging the use of residential dwellings for tourist accommodation. In other words, this would discourage conversion of dwellings or portions of dwellings in a manner that's not residential in nature. So this could be creating like lock-off units without cooking facilities or so on. It's proposed to discourage this in the OCP. Although in recognition that under the Local Government Act, property owners do always have the right to appeal a local government's land use regulations and do this through the submission of a land use application, it's proposed to introduce policies that would encourage these applications to be submitted in the form of a temporary use permit application.
We just have a quick question.
Thank you, through the chair. I appreciate your discussion about this, because that exact statement about those locked off units within a section, that does not work for Apex. That's exactly what Apex is. So that was my concern. That was my request from the very beginning, is that we accommodate that. And hearing that, I feel like we're going in the wrong direction for Apex.
Staff.
So I guess from staff's perspective, what we heard was in relation to unauthorized or unpermitted dwelling units. A lock-off unit is not a dwelling unit because, as Mr. Kent was describing, there's probably no kitchen, may not be bedrooms. It's not a dwelling unit. So we understood the concern to be around unapproved dwelling units, not some other type of structure that may have been converted for overnight accommodation, if I'm understanding correctly.
I'll just proceed with the last few changes before turning it over to general discussion. So the next category of changes relates to those areas that wish to retain the historic distinction between bed and breakfast and vacation rentals. That'd be A, C, and E. And in order to retain that distinction would be relying on the issuance of short-term rental permits where there's an operator not on site. And so this slide outlines the policy criteria that would be considered in support of the issuance of these permits. And if the proposal does fit within these policy criteria, issuance of the permit would be delegated to staff. If it does not, then of course consideration would need to be by the board. So these criteria are a maximum of 1 short-term rental per parcel. The short-term rental use is occurring in a single detached duplex, accessory dwelling, or secondary suite. The intensity of use is 8 guests with 2 guests per bedroom. The ratio of parking is provided at 1 parking space per bedroom. The dwelling meets health and safety requirements, and no representations from the public opposing the proposal are received. And of course, if a proposal doesn't meet these criteria, it would simply be scheduled for consideration at the next available board meeting, similar to the current approach for development variance permit applications. Some changes are proposed by the bylaws surrounding the notification of these short-term rental permit applications. And so in recognition that the general spirit of the short-term rental permit is to streamline those applications that are within the parameters that the board has indicated are supportable. So those would be the ones on the previous slide. It's proposed to not require notice of development signs for those applications, and that notification be provided via the methods listed below. So that would be letters to properties within 100 meters, FOIA alert notification within 150 meters, and updates to the application webpage. And while the next two slides deal with the business license bylaw, just in recognition that that is a separate project and is not really the focus of today's presentation, but just to provide a clear picture of the overall project direction. So the short-term rental business license is not proposed to apply in areas C and F. It's proposed that one business license application would be required if a short-term rental use is occurring in a secondary suite or an accessory dwelling on the same property as a short-term rental in the principal dwelling. In other words, you just require one business license per operation for the whole property rather than for each individual dwelling unit being rented out. It's also proposed to require that property manager contact information be provided to neighbors within a 100-meter radius, and this would be collected as part of the business license application. And in support of issuing a business license for short-term rental businesses, the following information is proposed to be required. So that would include a health and safety inspection, parking plan information, floor plan, and fire evacuation plan. Essentially just the information that staff would need in order to confirm that the proposal does in fact align with our land use bylaws. And separately, another separate project is an additional business license requirement that only applies in electoral area E. And so this is in relation to tourist accommodation uses. That would be those uses that I described earlier in the presentation. For these uses, it's proposed to apply a $200 annual license fee, and it would apply to the following uses. That'd be agritourism accommodation, campgrounds, hotels, motels, tourist accommodations. That would be more so the conversions of dwellings that I spoke to earlier, and tourist cabins. And so in recognition, staff does feel that the draft bylaws currently do reflect previous direction from the board. And for this reason, staff is recommending that the bylaws be brought forward for consideration of first reading. But staff does acknowledge that there may be a desire to further augment the bylaws. And so that's the alternative recommendation. And with that, I'll open up to questions.
I'll go to Director Taylor.
You know, if you could just go back on your slides to the area E, the second last slide, I think it was. I'm just wondering what, if you're proposing a $200 business license for these other categories, what do they have to provide in order to get that business license? Are there on-site inspections that they have to do? Nothing, they're just pay $200.
Through the chair. So the only review that staff would be conducting is a review against permitted uses under the zoning bylaw. Unlike the short-term rental business license, which does have other requirements related to like on-site parking, health and safety inspections, et cetera, that would not be applied in this case. So it would just be permitted uses in the zone and any other zoning regulations.
Director Bush.
Yeah, so are B&Bs included in this short-term rental, whatever licenses and everything? And are they also required to register with the province?
Through the chair, yes. So the reason why B&Bs are being included is because the province has included them under this new short-term rental accommodation act that they introduced. So there is a registration requirement from the province. And in relation to our bylaws, bed and breakfasts and vacation rentals are proposed to be referred to as the same thing going forward, just to mirror that the province is calling both of them short-term rentals.
Director Roberts, then Director Pender.
Thank you through the chair. My question was going to be quite similar on bed and breakfast because I'm trying to separate, whether you got the homestay with a bedroom and sharing the kitchen with the primary homeowner. It seems kind of onerous. And again, you're stating that this is mandatory. So us areas that did not buy into the SDR and don't have any of these bylaws, how do people operate within our areas? Do they still have to reach out if I'm having a bed and breakfast in the room next door in my house? Am I having to register with the province?
Through the chair, yes. In those areas where there are no land use bylaws changing and where the principal residence requirement wasn't applied, obviously nothing will be changing in that respect. But the province still does require for any short-term rental use through the province, except for a few exceptions that are laid out in the legislation, they do need to register. In support of their registration, there are, I believe, a number of other fields that may need to be ticked off. So that would be like the principal residence requirement, if it applies. And second to that, like a business license requirement, if it applies. So property owners may need to put some information into those fields when registering with the province. But there are no additional or new requirements at the regional district level.
Follow up. So do we understand how the province plans on policing that in an area that this is not happening? Like I'm a little bit confused. I'm also trying to provide information for those people that are planning on doing those types of things in the area. It's kind of like, you better do this or else.
Through the chair, I'm not sure I can speak to how the province plans to enforce their new legislation.
Director Pendergraph.
Okay. For myself, I'm comfortable with most of this, except for the fact that I don't really want to have business licenses needed for bed and breakfasts. And that would be the only change I would want to see for my area, is eliminate that, and I'm good with the rest. So they're separated because of the wording with our permits and stuff. So there's a clear definition there, or distinction, not a definition. And if needed, I would move that this goes forward with that specific amendment. And
So we're moving that then with the amendment to remove area A from business licenses
for the bed and breakfast.
or so for short-term rentals.
Bed and breakfast.
But that's not a term that we have. Short-term rental is the terminology that we have. So you can't,
Well,
we'd have
that's
to go to staff
debatable
on.
how staff can do that.
Yeah.
And there's another question.
I was just going to add, staff can certainly draft revisions to reflect the request.
I'll second.
Director Taylor. Director Cohen.
I just have a question on that because you opted in, would they, because if the provinces lumped them together, is that a automatic or?
Through the chair, no. The legislation states that a business license number is required to register with the province if a business license requirement applies. So if the business license bylaw is amended to not require business license, it wouldn't be required by the province.
Director Bloomfield.
Thank you. I believe there was a meeting with the electoral area directors regarding their specific requirements under these regulations or proposed regulations. Did that happen?
Through the chair, yes.
It sounds like you haven't finished that work yet. So I'm just, because there's, unless we want to deal with the amendments in the regular meetings or committee meetings, which is fine. But, again, we're dealing with a lot of requests for amendments that I thought were going to be dealt with in the meeting between the electoral area directors.
I had a hand from Director Gilbert, but I see that's down. Do you still want to
I was just
comment?
going to point out, I just want to point out just to make sure the directors turn on the mics. I didn't hear what Director Taylor said in regards to the short-term rental because the mic wasn't on.
Director Pendergraph.
Just to address Director Bloomfield's, the only reason for, and I believe it's the same for Director Taylor, is as a result of the public information. These are the changes we're requesting because those folks don't want the B&Bs included in the business licenses. So that's where it's coming from.
Director Holmes.
Maybe just get some clarification, but my understanding is there's no such thing as traditional B&B anymore. There's short-term rentals where you have the owner or an operator on site, which is what the B&B, a traditional B&B would be, but it could also be somebody with a carriage house or something, and they live in the main place, and they're not providing breakfast, but they're all considered the same thing. If the owner is living there, so I'm not sure how you distinguish the two of but maybe staff can clarify. But to me, it's all from my understanding, it's all the same now. If there's an owner living on site.
I'll go to staff if you have a comment on that.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. Under the new provincial legislation, they're being treated equally. That's the reason for the use class name change in the proposed amendments, is in recognition that the province is treating them equally. However, that wouldn't preclude staff from drafting amendment bylaws using either zoning authority or business licensing authority to create a distinction within our own bylaws.
Follow up.
So we would have to define ourselves what a B&B is, as opposed to a short-term rental with an owner on site. Seems kind of bureaucratic, mumble jumble to me.
Can I use that quote in future? Just for the board's benefit, and Mr. Kent can correct me if I've got this wrong, but I believe we've already had to do that in the context of the zoning bylaw because of the different approaches being applied to the different electoral areas. And so I believe there's already reference to situations where either there's no resident on site or situations where there is the resident on site with the patrons. So I think it's just going to be a matter of expanding that probably to the business licensing bylaw to create this separate category where B&Bs, if you are actually operating as a B&B, wouldn't be required to get a business license. Or sorry, I shouldn't say B&B, I mean a short-term rental accommodation with the resident on site with the patrons.
Director Watt and then Director Chahal.
Thank you, through the chair. Just curious too, that don't these Airbnbs, they need a registration number, they need a business license anyway. So if you're a B&B, you're going to still have to get the business license to be able to advertise on these platforms.
Through the chair, the registration number is required by the provincial legislation. However, a business license is not required. So I believe the legislation, the way that it's worded, it says you would, if you have a local government requirement for business license, that number must be included on your online listing. But if there is no business license requirement, then there wouldn't be a business license number to list. So it does provide for discretion, in other words.
Director Chahal.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'd like to follow suit and also remove the business license recommendation if they're actually operating as a bed and breakfast.
So just a point of clarification, I don't think electoral area C is actually a party to the business license servicing establishment area. So it's not applicable in area C, but yeah. So I think that concern is already addressed.
Thank you.
Director Gittins.
Thanks to the chair. I think today would be really good to really narrow down any amendments that we need to make on this so we can move forward on it. I've had citizens in area waiting to find out what our rules are going to be, and we're already into July, and there's a lot of things we need planning to work on. And I know it's a lot of change and there's a lot of pressure in a lot of areas. It's probably not going to be perfect the first year, and we can always relook at it after a little bit, but I think we need to kind of lean into this and that we're going to pilot this and give it a shot and see what comes back. I think sending it back to staff to redraft to try and guess what you all want is too hard because we keep having this come back. So if there are amendments to make, like it's not going to be bed and breakfast, and let's just make that clear in this motion so staff can leave and know exactly what we want. And then we can come back and give it a shot because the season's almost over, to be honest with you, so.
Director Holmes.
I just, for a question for those who don't want to have a business license for B&Bs, why don't you just not have a business license for if they're for any short-term rentals with a owner operator on site? Because what you're going to get is you're going to get these people who just want to rent out their room or their suite, trying to fit the definition of becoming a business, a B&B. So just rather than get into that, just don't have any of them have a business license, because I think you're just going down a rabbit hole here.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor.
Sorry, Chair, can you just read the motion?
Yeah, with 2 amendments. So yeah.
Okay, so what I understand has happened is that the original motion that staff presented has been moved and seconded with the addition of including to remove business licenses for Area A for B&Bs. So that was the original. Then we had an amendment to that, which was also to amend the resolution to include Area D to be exempt from traditional B&B business licenses. So right now you have an amendment first to vote on, and then it would be the original resolution as amended.
Alrighty, so we're voting on the amendment to remove A and D. Director Gittins, you have
I just have a question for Area I, because you had mentioned that they're going in the wrong direction for Apex. So is there something we can do here to give the direction that they need?
Director Monteith.
Looking for direction from staff because I've expressed this concern about Apex. Really wanting there to be a process for Apex, but wanting to honor what they have so that they're able to have the accommodations that they have. I don't want to take away vacation rentals from Apex. So I really want to make sure that this is done right for Apex. I've heard from Apex residents. They don't mind a business license. They don't mind the process, but they don't want to lose what they're doing now.
Sorry, I'm struggling. I'm just trying to think quickly how we can respond to this, because I think what the request is asking us to do is if we are presented with situations where somebody is seeking a business license for an unapproved dwelling unit, that we ignore the unapproved dwelling unit aspect of it and issue them a business license to use it as a de facto dwelling unit. Which at a staff level presents challenges, I think. I'm not sure. So I'm just looking at Mr. Petrie in terms of code compliance with these situations when they come to light. And I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot here. I'm not sure if you're able to help us here.
Yeah, I think it would be challenging if we actually had to enter onto the site and witness it personally. So if there were health and safety inspections involved, we'd have a duty to enforce on those. And I've said this before, I think the city of Penticton incurred an extra 25% workload just through the enforcement aspect of enforcing short-term rentals.
Okay, so as Apex is exempt from the primary home rule because they were identified by the province as being a resort area, maybe we just remove Apex from this part of it, right? Can we remove Apex from needing a business license, that whole community, and then we're just, yeah. I just don't want to complicate things for Apex.
I'll second that.
I might need some help from Mr. Petrie here, but I'm not sure if that addresses the issue, because if we receive a complaint about a vacation rental operating contrary to whatever zoning regs, irrespective of what the business licensing bylaw might say, and we investigate it, and it's still an unapproved dwelling unit, we're no further ahead in terms of how we deal with that. If it's brought to our attention, then theoretically we're going to ask them to cease operating until the dwelling unit is brought into compliance, either with the building code or the zoning bylaw or whatever.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go to the CAO.
So if we are aware of something like that, where there's a short-term rental, it's illegal, and we ignore it, this board as a whole is legally liable. So that's something that we just can't skirt around. Just want to let the board know that.
Follow up, Director Monteith.
Okay, so I think I would like to make a motion that Apex is removed from this whole process because they were already identified as having not having to have the primary occupancy. Like, it just feels like if we can't do it right for Apex, then I don't even want to mess with what they have.
Okay, we'll put that in the amendment.
Thank you, Chair. So what I just went back to the board's procedure bylaw because I am still learning it, and it does allow an amendment may be amended once only. So the amendment that currently is, which is to add the area D in, I can also add as another into that as removing area D. Is it entire D or sorry, I or only Apex from that if that's. Can we?
Yeah, we need, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but we need better direction at a staff level for planning. Like, are you referring to the whole of all the amendments that are before the board today, and we simply revert back to the status quo at Apex? So the OCP, the zoning, business licensing, everything else that is on the table, Apex is out.
Thank you. If we can't do it right for Apex, I don't want to take away rentals that are at Apex. There's short rentals at Apex. We don't want to make it more complicated. Like, I wanted them to go through a process. They supported the process, but if I'm hearing that they apply and they're going to get turned down, that's not encouraging rentals at Apex. And I've asked for this all along for Apex to make sure that we're honoring what they have.
Okay, so sorry, on the fly here, I'm not sure that addresses the concern because we're still potentially, if I'm understanding correctly, dealing with situations where unapproved structures are being used for vacation rentals, and simply removing Apex from the suite of amendments doesn't address that. Right? Off the top of my head, I think what you're asking for is an exemption or some new provision put into the bylaws to allow for them to continue to operate this way. But sorry, it's on the fly here, so I'm not.
Yeah, can I make a suggestion maybe that can Apex be a separate motion then? And then we can look at teasing out what Director Monteith is looking for and not include it piecemealed into each of these. I'll go to Director Gilbert and then Director Quinn Jr.
Yeah, thank you. Just a clarification from the directors in Area D and Area A. I just want to know before I vote here, the reasoning for why one business B&Bs don't have to pay for a business license and why a short-term rental one similar operation has to pay for a business license, why one is exempt and the other one's not. It's one clarification on that.
Director Pendergraft?
From my perspective, they're distinctly different, although they're defined as one and the same by the province. In my area specifically, some of the B&Bs only deal with 1 or 2 customers for the year. A business license under that scenario puts them out of business, where the short-term rentals, one night in most cases pays for their business license, and they're usually operating all the summer season or longer. So I don't want to kill the few B&Bs I still have.
Director Taylor?
I agree with Chair Pendergraft's comments, but I also feel that from my perspective, my effort was to align with the province's efforts to address or provide a regulatory framework for the new phenomenon of Airbnb style accommodation. And I wanted to, that's my focus and always has been my focus.
Director Coyne Jr.?
Yeah, so I feel like you guys and Director Monteith are talking about two different things. She had the ability prior to this to have it was in her zoning and OCP to have Airbnb, have short-term rentals. She's asking now to not have a license as to that, because when this all came up, we asked specifically, and I remember she did, I did, I think Director Roberts did, ask specifically if this was going to impact, and the answer was no. And now we're hearing it's going to impact. So I think the issue here is you guys are looking at it as there's a illegal structure. She's looking at it as this was already allowed, and now it's like everything's being blurred together. And I don't think they're the same. I think you guys are looking at it the same, but I think she's looking at it as those people already had the ability and now it's going to be taken away from them. And now you guys are looking at it from a bylaw side of it, going, everything's illegal, but it's not, right? I could be wrong, but that's the way I'm hearing this conversation.
CAO?
Just to clarify, the only reason it may have been allowed was because we didn't know about it. If it was illegal rental, bylaw would have been, and they had the complaint, the bylaw would have been up there. Correct, Mark? Please.
Yeah, I can add to that a little bit. I think really what the concern is right now, it's complaint driven. And with the new process, it would force the majority of the people through the process. So the volume would increase. I think that's really the difference between the two. But none were either allowed. We just didn't hear about them. I think that's the reality of it.
Director Monteith?
Thank you. And that's exactly, so between these two conversations, that's exactly it. So, and I do know that there has been circumstances where properties have been visited by bylaw, and, there's the one on Whitetail that we can talk about. So, I just feel like I've been asking for Apex to have its own special something, and I'm not seeing that. So I don't feel that Apex can continue with a business license until we sort that out for Apex. So I don't want to hold up the rest of the region. Everybody else is ready to go. But I think if we remove Apex and bring them back later, I think that's the way to go. So that's why my recommendation is to remove Apex from the business license.
CAO?
Just to clarify, if there's no business licenses, it's status quo. So that means there's no changes. Bylaw would come up there if we hear a complaint. We're not going to ignore that. So that would be the solution.
Yep.
Can somebody second my motion?
Well, hold on. We're still in the middle of an amendment because we still have to amend A and D in there. So we're just on an amendment, whether we're adding Apex to our 8 amendments here. Director Gettins and Director Watt.
I just want to make sure I understand it for Apex. The status quo doesn't mean a TUP. It just means because they're exempt, they're allowed to do their resort thing. You don't need a business license. Go for it. Do your thing. Okay, thanks.
Director Watt?
Thank you to the chair. Just if you could confirm for me, because my concern is that what we're doing is turning a blind eye to safety. Is that something we're actually doing, or am I incorrect in that?
CAO?
You're correct, because what this does is it takes away our power of determining what's illegal and legal.
Director Monteith?
Thank you, through the chair. So Apex has always been allowed to have vacation rentals. They've always just, they haven't had a process. They've never had a TUP. They've never had that. It's actually written in their OCP that they encourage vacation rentals at Apex. So if it's reported that they have an illegal suite, then yes, bylaw goes up. There's a whole process. It's come to the board many times. They've had to remove kitchens. We've had to deal with them when they've been reported. That's what I'm asking for, is we go back to what Apex has had before.
Follow up?
Thank you to the chair, and thank you for the comments. My concern is Penticton's also always been able to have Airbnbs and short-term rentals, and we can't anymore. Things change, and to ask me personally, maybe the rest of the board, to vote in favor of something that puts someone's life or health in jeopardy because it's the way it's always been is not something I can personally support.
Okay, so Erwin has been on. Okay, so then are we on our amendment? I'll get Tracy to let us know where we're at.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So what I understand from our procedure bylaw is that we currently have one amendment to this bylaw because when the motion was originally moved and seconded, it included Director Pendergraft's addition. So we have one additional amendment right now, which the procedure bylaw says it can be amended one more time. So what I would recommend is that if the director wishes for that to be added into this amendment, that the director make the motion, and if it gets a second, then I will add it in and it can be voted on by the board.
Director Taylor?
If I can just ask the CO, I didn't quite understand. Are you saying my amendment to the chair's amendment is not included, or it is?
It is. It's what I'm considering to be the actual only amendment that we have, because when Director Pendergraft made the motion, he added that in. So it's not considered an amendment. He just added into the original resolution.
So I'll propose then that we make the amendment with area D included, and we'll vote on that motion, and then we can bring in a separate motion to remove Apex as its own individual motion.
Chair, I think what we need to do is have the director make the motion to amend the amendment to include area D Apex area. And if it gets a second, then I will include it and then it can be voted on.
Director Holmes?
Can't you have two separate amendments? Because if you're lumping, I mean, what if you agree with one amendment and not the other?
How I'm looking at it is that if this comes forward as an amendment to the amendment, if it doesn't get a second, then the original amendment stands, which is the area, the one that Director Robert Taylor did. Yeah, sorry.
So then Director Monteith, did you want to bring forward an amendment to our amendment to remove Apex from business license?
Yes, please.
Is there a seconder for that? Okay. So now our amendment is to add Apex, and Tracy, are we just voting on that then? And then that would then be added to Director Taylor's.
So first, what I need is a vote to amend the resolution to include area D, or for area D to be exempt from a traditional B&B and remove Apex from business licensing requirement.
Okay, so we have first and second on that. A smidge more discussion. Director Watt and then Director.
Thank you to the chair. Should we not have a definition of B&B then before we do this? We don't actually have one.
I'll go to staff.
Through the chair, I think with the direction provided by the committee today, we can draft something up that addresses this.
Follow up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But again, I think we'd probably all have to, and Director Pendergraph hit on it, is it sounds certainly like the exemptions are being asked for because a B&B is based on usage, not on the business model. So I'm hoping usage and limited to is part of that definition.
Tracy?
Hi, thank you. I just indulged the patience of the board with me because I am trying to understand our procedure bylaw. Reading this, what it says is a proposed amendment must be decided before the motion being considered on the main motion is put to a vote. An amendment may be amended once only. So I'm thinking, to be fair to all of the amendments, we should vote on the addition of the apex, and then if that is to be included, we will vote on the other amendment and then put them all into the main motion.
Okay, so we'll get motion then on all in favor for adding apex to the amendment. Are there anyone opposed to that? I've got 3 opposed. Director Watt, Director Bush, and Director Roberts. And Director McCordoff, Director Gilbert, and Director Weeb. Tracy, yep.
Okay, so then we need to vote on the amendment to exempt the Area D from the traditional business licensing. A is included in the original motion.
Yeah. So apex, is this with the amendment for D and apex? Is that now lumped together as one? Okay, so now we're voting on the amendment for D and apex to be included into the motion. So I will call the question. All in favor? This is another amendment to add to there. So this amendment is now D and apex.
Thank you. I am sorry about the confusion here. It is confusing, and I'm trying to make this less confusing by our procedure bylaw saying an amendment may be amended once. So I'm taking that to mean that we had one amendment, we've added the apex. So now what we need to do is vote on the amendment to include it into the original motion.
Yep. So this vote is for D and apex to be added. Apex was added as an added emotion to D. So now it's D and apex together as a package. And then that package will then be lumped into our first package. So all in favor of D and apex added to our motion. Those opposed? So same lot. Yep. So now we have an amended motion that includes A, D, and apex and removing from business licenses. All those in favor? Oh, okay. Sorry, discussion then. Director Holmes.
So yeah, no, just following what Director Watt was saying, I don't know how to vote on this because I do not know what a B&B is. We don't have that definition. Does it just include those traditional bed and breakfasts where they provide breakfast to their guests? Does it also include somebody with a room in their house and it's a mortgage helper but they don't provide breakfast? I don't know what a B and B is. Because it's, we, until we have a definition, I don't know how to vote, and so I'll be voting against.
Tracy?
Thank you, Chair. The board always has the opportunity to make a motion to refer it back to staff or to defer consideration. That overrides.
Director Taylor?
I'll take staff's advice and refer this to staff. I think staff have heard what we're looking for. So I'm looking to defer this to staff. Yeah.
Okay, and there's no talking on a deferral, so we motion to defer. Any opposed? I have a few opposed. Director Monteith, Director Bush, Director Watt, Director Weeb, Director Gilbert. That was opposed.
Chair, I have 6 opposed. Is that correct?
So then that carries. I will now make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Perfect. We are now adjourned.
Thank you, Director Fedrigo. I do believe we've got maybe enough time for a quick, or should we take the break now, CAO?
Chair, the next one is a corporate service committee. The 2 items on there can be deferred to next meeting.
If need be,
If
okay.
need be.
We will break for lunch then now. And come back on our regular schedule.
Must be an easier way to do this. Yeah. Get all the little.
It's been painful. I agree.
I mean, I can understand this is painful. You should try selling real estate.
Getting the thumbs up from Adam. We are ready to go here. And we will go straight to protective services. So I'll turn it over to Director Roberts.
Thank you. So we'll call this Protective Services Committee commencing at 12:25. Can I have a motion to accept the agenda? Second? All in favor? All right. Well, I'd like to pass this on to the CAO.
Thank you, Chair. So today we have the Senior Manager of Protective Services here to provide the board with a update on and an overview of the emergency operations system. Staff's here with the presentation and answer any questions after that.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to be here today. My name is Shane Houlihan. I'm one of the emergency program coordinators with the Protective Services Department. The RDOS, it'll be no news to you, is a varied and beautiful region. It's home to a diversity of communities and residents, each with their own identity. However, the same landscape, it also presents a variety of hazards. Within each community, there also exists exposures and differing levels of resiliency unique to them too. Over the past few decades, the RDOS staff and elected officials have experienced and participated in extended emergency operations center activations in response to these challenges and these circumstances. The elected officials, as elected officials, you play a crucial role in guiding communities through these stressful events and crises. To assist you in navigating emergency events and the emergency management program, we've developed this presentation to provide you with some information, an overview of our program, and to equip you with tools and the information necessary to support our department and ultimately our residents. Cheers. We'll start with the comprehensive emergency plan. This is a framework for how the RDOS emergency management program operates. It's not one binder we could drop on your desk and hope that the legs don't buckle. It's more a living document made up of some independent component pieces, and it's subject, all of those pieces are subject to amendment and updates as new information comes to light, new initiatives are undertaken, and new lessons are learned. The objective of the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan is to guide our planning activities, to assess and to mitigate risks, to ensure that RDOS is prepared for response and recovery when an event or a crisis does occur, and to provide a cycle for continuous evaluation of the emergency plans and procedures and for their iteration and their improvement. There we go. Cheers. Sorry, I'm coming to terms with the remote here. We've recently made some addendums to the Comprehensive Emergency Management Program, namely the Crisis Communications Guidance and Procedure, Evacuation Zone Entry Permit and Procedures, and you'll see that that's also under revision in the next slide. Our hazard-specific plans, this may be, we're currently working on an extreme weather plan, and we have flood-specific plans, regional plans as well. The Community Wildfire Resilience Plan for Electoral Area A has been completed. Critical infrastructure plans, including dams and airports, these are authorities that we work closely with. And duty officer responsibilities and procedures were all reviewed and updated recently as well. Under development at the moment, many of you will be aware of the Hazard Risk and Vulnerability Assessment, the HRVA program, a regional initiative that we're undertaking to identify and take action on the various risks that the region presents. Our extreme weather response plan, this will speak to extreme heat as well as extreme cold. Evacuation route planning, evacuation zone entry policy, key to some residents and some industries in our communities, and the Community Wildfire Resilience Plans for electoral areas B through I. Just to help everybody kind of ensure we're all singing from the same hymn sheet and ensure that we all have a common understanding of the terminology and the framework of emergency management, we wanted to give you an overview first of some of the levels of activation that you might hear about. We continuously have a duty officer on call. This is 3 of our team that cycle through on a weekly basis, available to receive calls 24/7 and initiate a response should it be required, or to advise if other actions or other agencies may be the lead. A level 1 activation would be one site with 1 or 2 agencies involved. Often this would be run virtually and wouldn't require the full fleet workforce staffing in the EOC. Level 2 is when things get that bit more serious and require that bit more resourcing, be it personnel or other expertise or equipment and resources. You'd have several agencies involved, 1 or more sites. You'd often have localized evacuations here. And then a major event is a level 3 event where you have multiple sites, often multi-jurisdictional, and we're working across, even community to community, even across regional districts, knowing that these things don't respect any jurisdictional bounds. Multiple agencies would be involved, and we're fully staffed in the EOC and likely for an extended period of time. Here then are some of the common emergency notices that you may support us in developing, approving, and distributing during an emergency. The first is a hazard advisory. This is when no emergency powers, which I'll speak to in a moment, or evacuations are required, but action may be taken, or we might provide some advice to ensure public safety. If you think of an air quality warning or an extreme heat warning, that's when we might issue a hazard advisory. They do not require a state of local emergency to be issued or any unique approvals, and they don't have any natural term of expiry. We might issue a follow-up depending on the nature of the hazard to alert the residents that that hazard is now passed and they can resume life as normal. An evacuation alert then you'll likely be very familiar with. This is intended to provide notice and guidance to residents in preparation or anticipation of a potential evacuation order. It does not require a state of local emergency to be issued but our team will request the signature of the chair to ensure that as elected officials, you're all adequately informed and up to date on actions being taken. We then move to a state of local emergency. The RDOS chair, their designate, would declare state of local emergency, which would be prepared for them by the EOC. It enables the RDOS and the EOC to exercise extraordinary powers. The state of local emergency naturally expires after 14 days, and if an extension is required or any alteration to the powers requested is required, we'd be issuing a new document for review and signature again. And then an evacuation order is issued when there's an imminent or immediate risk to public safety. These require state of local emergency to be issued, with the slight asterisk that if a tactical evacuation is deemed necessary by the first responders, by the fire departments, they can issue a tactical evacuation initially to ensure that anybody in imminent risk or immediate risk is taken out of the way of any hazard or danger, and then we would resume with the standard procedures of issuing states of local emergency and evacuation orders, hopefully providing residents with that a little bit more notice. Here are some of the response powers that we might request in a state of local emergency. Important to note that we would only request the powers that we feel are necessary for us to execute an effective response and to ensure public safety. We would not select all powers under any circumstance, and we would also be noting on that right-hand column who in the EOC actually has the authority to exercise that power. So Deborah, as the EOC director, would likely have more power to execute these extraordinary duties than myself as, say, an operations section lead. We would send this as part of the state of local emergency for review by the chair and the board, and for input if they did feel that there was any, that's a safeguard against any abuse of these emergency or extraordinary powers. And again, these would naturally expire at the end of 14 days unless an extension was requested. If we feel that the hazard is passed and we no longer require these powers, we will cancel the state of local emergency rather than maintain that 14-day term where we have these extraordinary powers. These are to be used delicately, of course. Now, I have here for distribution 2 documents. One is a quick reference guide. This is a 4-page document that will, it's a supplementary piece to this presentation. It gives an overview of emergency management in the RDOS and in BC broadly. It gives an overview of your role in emergency response in supporting the EOC. And it also gives some tools and guidance as to how to, say, deal with them or to manage and respond to any queries from the public. So we have just a paper document printed. We want you to take a look at it, to send us any feedback that you might have. We can then make revisions and we'll get you a laminated card copy, something a little bit more resilient that can take a bit of a beating and stay with you for long term. And we can get you multiple copies as well. You can have one home, car, and office, however you decide. So Deborah will distribute one of those to each of you. I'll proceed then, and you're welcome to review that in your own time and feedback to us. Here then is an overview of the EOC org structure. The RDOS bases its EOC org structure on the Incident Command System. This is ICS. This is a standardized framework for ensuring disasters and emergencies can be as efficient and organized as possible. It also represents chain of command. Each one of these sections that you see along the bottom has an important job supporting the EOC as a whole. Under each of these sections are further functions like emergency support services, GIS and mapping, a recovery unit, agriculture, specialized units that would be put in place depending on the needs of the emergency and only if those specific functions are required by that specific emergency. The policy group liaison on the left-hand side there under the director That would usually be staffed by the CAO or deputy CAO, and they'll be a conduit of information between the policy group and the EOC.
I just wanted to state the people that are online that I was not able to give a document to, we will actually make sure you receive a copy of the document.
Cheers. So who is the policy group? The policy group is typically filled by the chair or their designate, and that is the board chair, and the electoral area directors from the areas impacted by the event. The policy group liaison, usually filled by the CAO, deputy CAO, or corporate officer, will be a conduit of information between the policy group and the EOC. Policy group operational responsibilities include advising on existing policies that might and examining the requirement for new or temporary policies that support response to recovery. They may also request that we waive certain policies to hasten or make more efficient the emergency response. For instance, our purchasing and procurement plan may need to be waived or amended for the sake of the emergency response. They would authorize declaration and termination of states of local emergency, evacuation orders, alerts, and rescinds. And the chair or their designate would act as an RDOS media spokesperson. They'll be supported by the RDOS EOC information officer, and all members of the policy group would play a role in conveying accurate and approved information between residents and the EOC. They would also ensure steps are taken to acknowledge the contributions of recovery or of response and recovery staff and volunteers. While we do have a protective services department here, the EOC would largely be or significantly be staffed by staff who were seconded from their usual duties or volunteers who came in and they never signed up for emergency management, unlike myself and Deborah. So, you know, they deserve a due tip of the hat on the closing of their term of supporting the response and the hard work that they've done. As well as that, the policy group might advocate for extraordinary resources and or outside assistance and communicate with other levels of government on the EOC's behalf. So just to give another brief overview on the policy group, the liaison will serve as the primary contact for the policy group. The communication is a two-way exchange. It's conducted via phone call, email, text, all decided depending on the urgency and the need for swift replies. The policy group would usually consist of the chair or their designated representative, along with the area directors from the region affected. And in situations where we're collaborating across jurisdictions or with our local communities, municipalities, and First Nations, the mayor, the chief will be invited to join the policy group, and their CAO may be welcomed in as part of to play the part of the policy group liaison, or to play maybe the director role in the EOC as well. So we'd be ensuring that we're consolidating with those other affected municipalities where appropriate. One last further summary of the duties, just simplifying it down to what your group would receive and what you would provide. So you would receive signatures we would receive from you signatures and authorizations. We would receive from you policy decisions, and we'd request input and advice from the policy group for the attention of the EOC director. We would provide you with updates on the response operations, requests to waive existing policies, requests for advocacy to the province, and documents for review, approval, and signature. Communications is an all-important piece of emergency management, and you play a major role in supporting us with them, making sure that residents are adequately communicated to and adequately informed. During an emergency, the RDOS Board Chair is the designated media spokesperson. They may, if they wish, designate another elected official, staff member, or subject matter expert to speak on the RDOS's behalf. Only EOC-approved messages or information are to be shared with the public. This helps to reduce confusion, misinformation, or disinformation, and ensures the public have accurate, comprehensive, current, and actionable information. Your quick reference guide will have advice on how to keep the public informed, how to manage requests for information. It's got an FAQ section at the back to support you in managing queries as well. But always, you're welcome to reach out to the EOC via the policy group liaison if you do need additional information, or if there's anything not addressed in the FAQ there that you need some support with. But very important to impress that if the RDOS speaks with one voice and there's no conflicting messaging coming out of our group collectively, that our residents will be clear on the situation, they'll be calm, they'll be informed, and they'll be well prepared to action their own solutions, their own recovery, and to take the necessary actions during response. We'll take a moment to speak the Voyant Alert, one of the key tools that we use to make sure that the public is informed. Voyant will be used to notify the public of any emergency event that requires action by residents of a particular area, may impact critical services and transportation routes, and does not require action, but may cause concern amongst the public due to visibility. The Protective Services Department will limit the frequency of use of Voyant and the broadcast radius to avoid residents receiving unnecessary alerts that might lead them to ignore critical alerts when they do come through, or to unsubscribe from the system. This is a delicate tool to be used appropriately. You may find sometimes that local media or a residence page on social media are aware of an event prior to a Voyant alert being broadcast. This was an issue that we noted last year. It's a product of residents reporting through the tool that they're most familiar with. But the RDOS have partnered with local media last summer. We've designed some messaging in collaboration with BC Wildfire Service, directing the public on how to report a wildfire appropriately, where to go for additional information. That's namely the RDOS EOC website. And we found ready partners in local media in footnoting their articles around wildfire with that advice, knowing that we're all working in service of the same public. So that was a great success for us, and it's something that we'll be implementing this summer as well. So, if I could trouble you with some homework. We've passed around an exercise workbook. And we'd ask you to break out in groups of 2 or 3 and wrestle with those couple of columns and couple of pages there. We'll start first with our roles and responsibilities. And if you could just match, my text got cut off, mask the task to the group responsible. We won't be grading you. I forgot the candy. Give you 2 minutes with that one. Oh, question? Nope. Yeah. Oh,
Through the
sorry,
chair.
through the chair.
I don't know who the chair is right now. Can I speak? Okay. Are we able to ask questions now with your presentation? Is that?
Yes, yeah.
So over the last couple of years, the board has worked on a communication policy that included elected officials in those times that, it was in our area, those sort of things. I didn't see that mentioned today. Like, I don't see where we're included in those.
So we developed a crisis communications plan last year. Eric.
Hello again to the chair. Are you saying in the policy you don't see where it's included? It is in the policy where it says that the chair can delegate. So if there is something going on, an event in electoral area I, for example, the chair may choose to be the spokesperson, but could certainly delegate the electoral area director to speak on behalf of the electoral area. And it is in the policy. It might not be clear, but I like to think it is. We can certainly review it.
Sorry. That is our understanding as well.
And for those people online, apologies, you don't have the exercise workbook, but you can work away in your head there for a moment, and we'll have answers up in a moment here. This is how we're doing it. Yeah. So we'll go to exercise 2. This is just a simple workflow. So we wanted to think through how duties might be assigned and passed along, how the baton of responsibility might be passed along through some core kind of activities. So BC Wildfire Service advise an evacuation order be put in place. We'll ask you to give some thought to who would develop that state of local emergency and evacuation order. Who would provide the state of local emergency and who they would provide it to for review and signature, who would sign that state of local emergency, and then who would be responsible for publishing that state of local emergency and order on the RDOS website. All right, I've got answers for you on this one. When BC Wildfire Service advises us on an evacuation order, the EOC would develop the state of local emergency and the evacuation order. The policy liaison would then provide that state of local emergency to the policy group through the chair for review and signature. The policy group chair would sign and declare that sole, and then the information officer in the EOC would publish that state of local emergency and order on the RDOS website. Full marks all around, I'm sure. All right, next one. A policy group member receives a media inquiry related to an ongoing wildfire event. Who would the policy group member provide details to? This green one's a hard one. Who would they inform? And who would action next steps? And then who would coordinate an interview with the media? And who would act as spokesperson during the media interview?
I think we can move on and give next step.
Cheers. So the policy group would receive the media inquiry. The policy group member would provide those details to the policy group liaison. The liaison would then inform the EOC director, and the info officer would begin to action that. It would be the info officer that would coordinate that interview with the media, and the chair, their delegate, would act as spokesperson during the media interview. So thank you all for your participation in that. For myself, a bit of scribbling always helps to reinforce some of the lessons of the day. But you may all well have been better students than me. Our thanks, and we've got time for any questions if anybody does want. Thank you.
Perfect. We have Director Rodrigo first.
Thank you to the chair. So I'm a representative on the Okanagan Regional Library Board, and we have 4 other facilities in the region that are used as heating and cooling centers. And so just wondering if anywhere in our planning, there's to reach out to the ORL to talk about whether some of our smaller branches could operate in the same capacity and what that would kind of look like. And then I have another question.
Yeah, that's actually perfect timing. We're working on the extreme weather plan, just reviewing it. We already had a plan in place. What we're using as a guide is the extreme weather, the extended sort of research and planning project that was undertaken finishing last year, ran over the year previous. That included a review of various different facilities around the regional district, and we've been using their evaluations and assessments of those facilities as the primary locations for heating or cooling centers, but more is always better. So we'll reach out for follow-up on that, and yeah, appreciate the input on that. That'll only strengthen the plan.
Another question. Second question. So if Fortis does enact their power shutoff, what does that look like for us? Like, is that a local state of an emergency? So if something happens, we get compensation. Like, we're probably early for this, but just to keep in the back of our minds, what does that look like on our side?
So the province does not consider a power outage as an emergency, and there will be no funding support whatsoever for us to activate for that. Anything that comes out of it, a fire or whatever types of, possibly if it is an event that is covered by them only.
Any more questions? Director Bush.
Yeah, so speaking of the power outage, is there a minister in charge of BC UC that we could talk to about the devastation, what can happen to some of our vulnerable constituents?
Definitely the Minister Kelly Green, Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, is a plug for considering the potential outcomes to people, but is there utilities?
Yeah,
Mr. Dix? Yeah.
Director Coyne Jr., question, statement?
I was just going to say, Minister Dix is the Minister of Energy right now, so he's also one to have a chat with.
CAO.
We've asked for the Premier to be at a meeting with us at UBCM. So that's one of the topics that we can discuss and produce a booklet.
Thank you for that. Further follow-ups, questions, statements? Not seeing any. I've got a couple of my own. One question or statement. I'm wondering, I still find it interesting that trying to get people on Voyant Alert. And I'm wondering if we can have a policy that, or a placement that any place where we have point of contact. So people come in to the front desk or they come out, that all of a sudden, hey, by the way, are you on Voyant Alert? And this is how you get it. And this is why. I think there's just these little gaps around, and it's, you know, you're leading. I literally had to photocopy it and go like this to my wife. It's right here, right here. So I'm wondering if every point of contact, if something can be done there.
We've definitely been implementing that when we go out into the public, but I totally agree. I think it would be a great benefit to have people in the front reception trained and asking the question. So that's a fantastic idea. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, my question is for the CAO. Where are we at in regards to your, I see another one. EOC in regards to a regional program that you were working with other CAOs, et cetera. So I hadn't heard where that's going, and inquire, you know, what they call inquiring minds want to know.
Yes. Well, it's definitely an ongoing process, and it's definitely building trust with the various communities that is required to get us to that place of a regional program. Pardon? So we are definitely working with the town of Osoyoos, the town of Oliver, and the town of Karamias. We're definitely working closely with each of those communities. In fact, Osoyoos, Oliver, we are named as their emergency program coordinator already with EMCR, so that we get the communication immediately. And we're working very closely with the other communities as well. We meet monthly with all the emergency program coordinators in the region. and including the First Nations, for First Nations. So there's a lot of work being done, but it is a long, long road ahead.
Thank you. And I have Director Taylor had his hand up.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thanks for this little exercise. I think that there's opportunity to do more of it with this policy group. I think it would be useful. I really like some of what I'm seeing in terms of structure and approach to emergency management. It just in my term, from my perspective, is improving. And perhaps other ways we could include it would be after an event. You could perhaps, I know you do hot washes with your own staff, but if you could do that conceivably with the board, just to acknowledge how it worked or didn't work and what the preferred approach might have been.
I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. CAO had a hand up.
Just something to add, next Friday, the CAOs in the regional south of Okanagan are getting together. And my topic is the regional EOC. And I'm hoping that I can talk Penticton and Summerland into at least considering being part of it. Did that work?
Could I, Director Monteith?
Thank you. Through the chair, where are we at with the policy on the tiger dams?
That's definitely in the works, but it's going to take a little while to get it back to the board.
Okay.
Thank you. And Director Federico.
Thank you through the chair. I just wanted to comment on the hazard assessment on the big chloroplast boards that were out for Canada Day. My kids and I went through it, so it was a really fun exercise to sit and think about what different hazards are in our area. So I hope that more residents will participate in that, and it's just a good exercise to get them thinking and awareness of the areas.
Through the chair, it's definitely been a successful way of getting the engagement in the public when we're out in the public events. And definitely we would really appreciate being made aware of any public events that you think it might be valuable to go to.
Perfect. I know for me, as long as there's big pictures and stickers, I'm cool. So I'm still looking if we see any concern. Oh, Monteith, follow up?
Yeah, thanks. If you're looking for something for Cleedon, July 9th is, or next Saturday, not this Saturday, next Saturday is our Cleedon Day. So staff know about that.
All right, well, looks like no more questions and no more comments. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the presentation. And seeing the motion here, can I have a motion to adjourn in regards to protective service? Second, all in favor? All right, over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Roberts. We should probably have enough time to finish this corporate services committee meeting, so I'm going to call it to order and look for a motion to approve the agenda. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? That motion carries. The first item up is the Good Neighbor Guide, and I'll go to the CAO.
Thank you, Chair. And you used the right word, guide. We were looking at policy and got a legal opinion on having the good neighbor policy, which means that there'll be expectations that bylaw follow up on the policy, and then with expectations, there's legal consequences. We don't have the staff, bylaw staff, to actually have a policy in place. So it was recommended that we go to guide. And we've got Eric's here to talk about where we're going with this and see if the board's on board with this new guide.
Over to Eric.
To the chair, thank you very much. And I'll ask Adam if he doesn't mind, bringing up the guide. We don't have a PowerPoint, but I do have the guide, which I think you've all probably had a chance to see. This was originally requested by Director Gettins for electoral area F, and this is what has resulted from that request, which was something that could be used for the entire region. As you heard from the CAO, the idea really is, this is just one page of it, the contact page. The idea is to provide a guide to encourage mutual respect, offer some ideas, and then also the added part of providing some contact information. As you can see, there isn't a lot there, but I think it does sort of set the tone for people and maybe be a conversation starter if they are looking for bylaws or further policy information. And this, once it gets the okay, will be distributed through the regular RDOS channels and will be attached to an information release that lets people know it's out there. And it would be really good for chambers of commerce and communities to use within the RDOS for new residents.
I see a question here. Director Federico?
Thank you, through the chair. Would this be able to be somewhat customizable to areas? So like for our area right now, we're finding struggles with neighbors and who owns foreshore. So is that something that, you know, if we wanted to distribute this for our area information, that would be good to include in there?
I'm going to defer to the CAO on that. I think as far as creating individual guides for each area, it could be attached to potentially an email or some other document that goes along with it that's specific to the area, but I'll see what the CAO thinks.
I would recommend.
Go ahead, CAO.
Thank you. I would recommend that would be an attachment, not part of the guide, just because then you're going to have it in other areas and it's not going to be relevant.
Okay. Director Gettens?
Thanks, the chair. So I did bring this up with staff a while ago when we first started talking about short-term rentals. And I yeah, I know, but we're talking about last summer for sure about this. And I never intended to be a policy, to be clear. That was never it. The example that I actually sent was the district of Squamish. So it was always a good neighbor brochure or guide or something like that. Nothing that was really enforceable. What I wanted it for was when we have short-term rentals in West Bench, the idea, because we're not doing business licenses, is that any of those tenants or visitors that are staying would know the bylaws. So noise bylaws, like when do you have to shut your music down? What time can you put your garbage out? That sort of thing. So that's what I was looking for. And I think the district of Squamish did a really good job because they talk about the rules that are already in place in our bylaws and then give examples of how to follow it. And if you have concerns, who then to call. I don't know if any of you have heard from your citizens, but ask anybody ask a few people in West Bench what time you're supposed to not have any noise in your backyard, and then ask them to put it on the website. It's pretty difficult to navigate our website. So that was the point. And I think so my question to staff was, I'd like to this REF to support short-term rentals so everybody understands what the rules are when they come and visit our community. And then it sort of evolved into this regional wide. And I think the problem is that it gets watered down because just as you asked, Director Federico, you can't personalize it now just for Area F bylaws. So I'm struggling to support this. I think that the message in there to me seems like common sense and that people would know how to talk to their neighbors, but they wouldn't know what time they could be loud until or what time their garbages need to go out, that sort of thing. So I think that, yeah, it's not really what I had in mind. I would just suggest that people take a look at the Squamish one. They do have bylaw references there. Here's what you need to know, even like how many chickens you're allowed to have in the backyard. Like it does give you a lot of information. But as it is right now with the brochure, I think it's just a little bit like just, be nice. But it doesn't tell information to people. And that's what I was looking for. So it's not really where I want to land. And I'm not too sure. I think I might just go back to the idea of just contracting something out just for Area F, because that's what I wanted for was information, not just here's a good idea, talk to your neighbor if you have a conflict. And that's sort of where it got watered down to. So I'm not super keen on where it is right now.
Okay. Director Roberts?
Yeah, thank you. And I think I understand what Director Getton's saying, but my role is I liked kind of what you were saying about being nice, because I've had the people call, and saying, I've been living in the area for 4 years, and the last 3 years, my neighbor's radio pops on at 4 a.m. every single morning in his garage playing loud rock. And do we have a noise bylaw? And I says, well, when's the last time you talked to your neighbor? Maybe he's just got an auto clock sitting in his shop and he forgets that it turns on automatically. And so I think there's a need to have that just nice as well. I think this kind of messaging is important because a lot of people don't even understand the cost of bylaw enforcement and the different things when they're really annoyed in the moment. And don't understand, do you know what that really means? You know, what road you're starting to go down. So I appreciate the nice messaging, but I do understand what Director Kettens's concerns are.
Okay, Director Monteith?
Through the chair, having seen the Squamish one, I actually prefer that just because it really breaks down. What I hear from residents is that the OCP is very cumbersome. If there's so many updates, amendments, and you don't know what's current anymore. So to have this as sort of like a go-to on the general guidelines of the rules that don't really change, I really like that a lot. So if you are gonna do an independent contractor, like I'm with you. And I think that working together, you know, there may be differences, but I think that there's a common language.
Okay, CAO?
Even if you get an independent contractor, it would be a document that reflects a policy of the board. And all of a sudden, you're going from guide to policy, and then we just don't have the bylaw officers to follow up on that. So where a municipality can do these policies because they do have bylaws, the officers available. Ultimately, regardless who does the guide or policy, this board has to approve it. And if you're approving something that has to be enforced, we have to back it up.
Director Gettens?
Thanks. I definitely appreciate that. And again, it's not to, we could call it an RDOS bylaw 101. Like, it's not any new information that isn't already on the website. The problem that we have on the website is we have this long bylaws, and then you have all the rules, and then you have everything in there, and you got to really drill down to find something that matters, specific area. I don't believe we all have the same noise bylaws. So you could look at it. No, we don't. We have one that are specific for area E or area F, sorry. So that's the kind of things that I'm talking about. So if you look at it in this one, the example that I gave you, it tells you what you need to know exactly. Like, this is what time you shouldn't have your noise out. It's not about enforcing. It's just the exact same information that's on our website, but in a way that's more easily accessible for citizens. It's not a policy. So I think getting hooked up on the policy versus the guideline versus the brochure, it's not. It's just a way to say, here's some information that's easily accessible.
Okay. Response to that, CAO, and then I'll go to Director Bloomfield.
So the risk manager in me kicks in. This is the alternative that I would propose, is that we keep it as a guide, and in the guide, we point to the bylaw. So it's still a guide. It doesn't say that we have to do it, but they would have to, it'd be complaint driven still, and they'd have to go to the policy. Because we do have policies. We have noise, and we have animal controls, etc. So it's something, would the board consider that?
Director Bloomfield, and then McCordoff.
Yeah, and I just want to say, if you're using District of Squamish as an example, is that the District of Squamish or the regional district? Because, you know, here we've got a regional district, we've got all sorts of different bylaws for different areas. And so I don't think you can really quote anything verbatim on a publication that covers the whole regional district. And, so it needs to refer to the bylaws in some way, shape or form. But, the District of Squamish is probably easier to look at or refer to because it just has one set of bylaws, I think, for the district.
Yeah, let's go to Eric.
To further on the CAO's point of directing people to where the bylaws are or what they're called, we could also, because we are in the middle of preparing the new website, and even with the current website, each electoral area has its own page that it lists key amenities and contact information, that type of thing. We could potentially put a link in there that highlights what the specifics are for each area, especially with short-term rentals and when you're talking about the different bylaws that are in place, because it's not one size fits all. So potentially in the electoral area page, if someone saw that general guideline and realized they could go to their electoral area page and find a bit of an aggregate of some of the information that's already listed on the website, that may help.
Okay, Director McCordoff. You're muted.
There we go.
Yeah.
So thank you, Chair. I guess looking at this, it needs to be fairly broad and very sort of general, because I'm just thinking from my point of view, the town of Vesuvius has a noise bylaw, area A doesn't. So this neighbor is under, he has to obey the noise bylaw. His next door neighbor doesn't have to. I mean, it makes sense to provide this for people and to say, think about these things before you do something silly or disrespectful. But we have to be really careful, because they're definitely, I hear from people all the time complaining about this and that, and it's not something I can do anything about. So it's tricky, but I appreciate the general gist of this, and being a good neighbor, being kind to people. That makes more sense to me. Thanks.
Okay. Not sure we need anything off of this. Okay, no more questions. We'll go to the C, Pop-Up Office Initiative, CAO.
So we're looking at the pop-up office initiative. We're looking to enhance the community engagement and improve access to regional district staff. I'm pleased to say that this is actually something that a lot of you have come to me and stated we should be next. So Eric was given the task of making this even better than originally thought of, and he has. And Eric, if you can continue with your comments.
Go ahead, Eric.
To the chair, thank you. Well, it's still in the early stages, but what we do know is the locations that we're looking at. You got a prelude, I believe, at the last meeting. So Princeton, Karamias, Oliver, and Osoyoos for the municipal locations. Karamias, we as a group determined probably best there to use the existing RDOS facility, the recreation center. I believe the corporate officer is in the process of contacting the other corporate officers in Princeton, Oliver, and Osoyoos to just request that we can go set up outside of their building. We're still really early on, and I think, again, this is probably a good example of where it won't be one size fits all, but the basic roadshow, we'll call it, will include one or more of the EV vehicles from the RDOS. We have a branded RDOS tent that we're getting. We'll have certainly a lot of brochures and information there. And then the real key to this is going to be question and feedback forms, where if people have issues or concerns that we're not able to deal with right there, we can certainly follow up with them, deal with as much as we can, and connect them via telephone too, if that's an option for them back at the office for some of the support. Voyant Alert would be a good example if they just want help with their Voyant Alert. We do have an option as well to have a tablet or something there with us to try and do it at the site. But again, it's really just about connecting with people in person. I think sitting there on a tablet is not, we might as well just stay back at the office. So hopefully there can be some good conversations and some good feedback and some good answers. In the rural areas, we're looking at Eris, Missoula Lake, Anarchist, Tulameen, Apex, and Eastgate. And that's just for now. And that alone is quite a bit. So the CAO has indicated he'd like to attend. I'll certainly attend as many or all of them, and then we'll invite other senior managers. We do know right now this is starting in September, that's the plan. We do know each area has certain concerns or issues. The card program right now is something for everybody. By then it'll be a little bit, will have worked itself out a little bit more. Although I've heard in some areas like Summerland, it's still an ongoing concern. There's still lots of questions. But protective services, of course, is really important to be at them, the different recreation programs for different areas. And then just a final note then for the rural areas, I have spoken with protective services about trying to base ourselves where possible at the fire halls, because that is a good, important community location. And we'd certainly be speaking further with the fire chiefs on that as well. And once we've determined all the dates and locations, we'll definitely make sure that the public knows about this in every way we can possibly get it out there, including an information release and posters.
Okay, any questions or thoughts, Director Holmes?
Thank you. I'm a little skeptical that there'd be no financial implications in doing this. It seems like a pretty big endeavor, so I don't really understand how there either won't be any overtime costs, or if there won't be, then what work isn't being done to provide this service. And it's more of a comment, I guess. But and also, I think for Summerland, where we would like to see RDOS presence would be in the district has an annual open house with its budget every year. And it would be nice to see the RDOS there because we have all our municipal departments and everybody at that thing. And it's a lot of people come out for it. So I think that would be, if we could be working together rather than duplicating these sort of events, that would be good.
Okay, CAO?
So in regards to cost, the majority of staff's going to be there is going to be managers. If we're going to be after hours, and in some cases, depending on how far away it is, it will be after hours. There's going to be some staff members there. We all have computers. We can actually work anywhere. In fact, one Director Gettins really helped me out as I was in a hotel room without any place to work, and she suggested I use an ironing board. That was my office. Thank you. I never thanked you for that. Thank you. So we could work on offsite anytime, anywhere. So as far as work getting done, that will get done. But if we get people there asking questions, that is work. One of the things, another saying that I came up with is I want to put the region back in regional district. And by going to all these areas, we're going to be known. A lot of people don't know who we are. There's 82,000 regional district clients in our organization. And I'd be surprised if how many, if there's 1,000 or so that know who we are. And I want to get that name out there. Their tax dollars are at work every day. And we just got to tell them what we do and what we are and help them where we can. There is a cost. The cost would be gasoline driving to point A, from point A to point B, us being point A. We'll try to use the electrical vehicle as much as we can, but in some, from Missoula, I doubt if we can use electrical vehicle all the way there and come back.
Okay, Director Taylor.
Yeah, I know OK Falls is fortunate enough to have RDOS office space, but I think if you could perhaps include us just in the provision of having some extra staff come in for a day, make it known to people. I think there's a lot of people that don't really even know that we've got an office there still, so.
Yeah, CAO?
We plan to hit every single, the 6 municipalities, and so far Penticton and Summerland wasn't mentioned off the bat, but yes, we'll be asking Penticton and Summerland where they'd like us and what would be the best date. And also OK Falls will be in the list, and same thing. Some electoral areas will have more than one. Apex was mentioned, but Cleveland's not going to be missed out either. So where all you have to do is ask us where you want us, and we're going to try to make it. We've already been you heard that we were going to Atticus Mountain, where we were planning to go to the fire hall. We've actually been asked if we could go to another place up there that is on regional district land, but it's not something associated with us. And we're going to try to make all requests, we're going to try to make happen. We can't make them happen in 1 month, but we will over a period of time.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands. I think that solves our agenda. So looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? We are done. And thank you, everybody, for your patience for the day. We're very close to, well, 5 minutes over, but close as we're going to get for the most part. So